Like any other game over its lifespan, Fortnite has seen many additions of varying quality. Some additions have been nothing but great for the game and very well received, while others are just better forgotten, which stresses the importance of quality control when it comes to adding features. And it is because of these quality control standards that many features added to the game often end up abandoned. While some of these features don't even make it out of development before they are abandoned, these are 10 features that Fortnite abandoned. The first subset of abandoned features to discuss in Fortnite's history are the features that made it to the live game. Whether they were removed shortly after their addition to the game or long after making their debut, all of these features have one thing in common, which is that they were in the game at one point. And the first of these features are the in-game leaderboards. The in-game leaderboards are first added in an unnamed patch on October 15, 2017, back in the preseason era of Fortnite. In the blog post that came alongside the patch, Epic Games shared their intentions with adding this feature. They stated that they wanted the leaderboards to be used for bragging rights purposes. They even added a separate section to the leaderboard that only tracks stats of you and your friends to further drum up competition. The leaderboard tracked top 25, top 10, and top 3 finishes as well as wins. It tracked these statistics in all available game modes as well, which of course were solos, duos, and squads. And in later updates, separate playlist tracking for LTM modes and trios would also be added. However, the strangest of all with the leaderboard feature was the score section. Score could be a standalone feature on this list of abandoned features, as during its entire time as a trackable metric in-game, it remained extremely vague on what it actually meant. Most concluded score was likely accumulated through in-game actions, such as opening chests and killing players, as typically, the more playtime you had, the higher your score was. However, the efficacy of the in-game leaderboards as a benchmark of skill would fade quickly. Not long after Fortnite's surge in popularity, many third-party apps such as TRN and BlitzGG would pop up. These third-party services had much more precise tracking than Fortnite's leaderboards and also provided many other metrics such as eliminations, best games, and win streaks. So early on, the best players in the game would turn to these third-party websites exclusively to track their stats. And by the time the game's first official competitive tournaments began to crop up, the in-game leaderboards were all but dead. Despite it being basically useless, the in-game leaderboard stuck around for a long time, until it was quietly shelved sometime in the past year. In July of 2023, Epic Games debuted the Fortnite Leaderboard Discord bot, which allowed you to generate nifty little charts comparing your stats to those of your Discord friends. Bundle this with the unanimous community use of third-party websites and it makes sense. However, strangest of all is that 99% of my viewers aren't subscribed to my channel, but you could change that by liking and subscribing if you so wish. The actual strangest thing of all though, was that the aforementioned score metric is still tracked on third-party websites to this day. It is safe to conclude that nobody has ever used score as a benchmark of skill, but I guess it's pretty cool that it's still there. Now let's briefly pivot to more competitive oriented features and talk about pins. Pins were the very first form of an award given out to those that placed highly in open tournaments. On October 15, 2018, Epic Games announced the addition of the game's very first open tournaments hosted in the Events tab. That month, and throughout the rest of the year, tournaments with varying formats would be hosted in all different game modes, and those who performed well in said tournaments were rewarded with a quote, shiny pin. At the time of their release, Epic never stated what these would do or if they had any future relevance. They couldn't even be used to show off either, as nowhere on your career profile did they display. Funnily enough, third-party websites such as Fortnite Tracker were the only way for players to really prove to others that they got enough points to get the pin. And it seemed like Epic agreed that this feature was a dud from the start, as not long after the start of these tournaments, pins were scrapped as a reward. Epic Games instead pivoted to the use of cosmetics, qualifications to other tournaments, and money as rewards for placing well. These days, pins are mostly memed on for being that one useless thing OG competitive players got for placing well. It's pretty sad considering what pins could have been. Imagine they could have been displayed on your profile on the Friends tab or something to show that you were a good player. Just food for thought. Keeping up with the topic of competitive, there are the official Epic hosted Scrims. In April of 2021, Epic Games decided to trial an official Scrims playlist on EU servers only. The way it worked was that there were two separate playlists. The Aura Scrims playlist for anyone who placed within the top 500 of the previous season's FNCS series points, and Open Scrims, which are open to all players above Division 3 in Arena mode, so basically everyone in the game. Those who performed well in Opens would get invites to Aura Scrims, and to really nobody's surprise, the Scrims quickly devolved into a W Key Fest and nobody took them seriously. They were a colossal failure from the start, but why? Well, first, there was no incentives whatsoever. The only incentive for these scrims was a promise of good practice, but good practice is only as good as the player base's willingness to believe in it. If nobody believes the practice is good, then they won't take it seriously. So with no incentives such as money, prestige, or cosmetics, nobody saw scrims as a viable avenue to improve at the game. Additionally, there was also the issue of accessibility. Open scrims were open to nearly every player, so a top 1000 player in the EU who consistently makes tournament finals and someone's 5-year-old cousin that camps in bushes to farm arena points would be in the same lobby. With this in mind, what is stopping those sharks from keying the little Timmies who sit in bushes? Unfortunately, scrims have only proven to be successful with extremely strict moderation, which is the reason early NA scrims under the leadership of Zayt were so successful back in the day. Without strict moderation, good practice can't happen, and Epic seemed to quietly agree, quickly shelving the idea right after the first week of scrims took place, not really making a statement as to why. And that is just the sad truth about Fortnite. While it would be nice to have a good rank system, it is simply impossible to do with a game as skillfully diverse as Fortnite. Scrims weren't the only game mode to be abandoned though, as there were also the various LTMs throughout Fortnite's history. LTMs date as far back as 2017 with the release of the 50v50 LTM, and very quickly, 50v50 was a huge success among the player base. People enjoyed the more laid-back nature of 50v50 and Epic took note. From this point onward, Epic would release new alternative playlists every single week. Many of Fortnite's most beloved experiences came from these LTMs, such as Solid Gold, One Shot, and The Floor is Lava. Some of these LTMs would later go on to revolutionize the game, such as the Siphon LTM, which greatly popularized the idea of being rewarded for getting kills. However, around some time in 2021, the once weekly rotation of LTMs we were used to became less and less, and as time progressed, we just got no LTMs at all. As for what the culprit is, it is likely creative mode and the addition of UEFN. With the tools provided by UEFN, players could simply make their own LTM style playlists, and Epic seemed happy with outsourcing this work to the community. UEFN was clearly a more profitable venture for Epic, and having LTMs in the game would only divert players away from it, so Epic quietly shelved LTMs for this reason. Now let's talk about some broken gameplay features, first of which being Friendly Fire. Back in the earliest days of Fortnite, Friendly Fire was turned on. However, due to a variety of reasons such as trolling and shoddy discretion of griefing reports, it was disabled in patch 2.2 on January 18, 2018. Epic initially said the change was experimental and subject to change, but it seemed players enjoyed the game without Friendly Fire as it never returned. It would be interesting to see how the game would be with Friendly Fire on today though, since the skill gap has progressed so much. With how problematic spraying is in competitive trios, experimenting with Friendly Fire could be a way to potentially alleviate that. But one feature that should never come back to competitive is traps. Traps have had a long history in Fortnite, with the game initially releasing with many different kinds such as the Wall Dynamo and Ceiling Zapper. However, they were removed with the launch of Season 2, likely to cut down on bloat. There were simply too many different kinds of traps in the game that all did the same thing. As for the classic damage trap most of us know, they stayed in the game for a good while. Eventually, they were vaulted with the release of Chapter 2 Season 2. Epic Games never gave a reason as to why, but it's pretty easy to see why they did it. With how far the skill gap progressed, traps are no longer used as a means of securing buildings. Rather, traps were used to cheese box fights by spamming traps on any wall you owned. Damage traps severely inhibited skill expression in box fighting, so it was a good thing that they were vaulted. Finally, for broken features that were abandoned, there were Shakedowns. Shakedowns were a mechanic first added in Chapter 2 Season 2. When used on a knocked player, a shakedown would reveal the locations of all their remaining teammates. While there was an inherent risk to shaking down as you needed to stand still for a few seconds to do so, this was downright broken. In retrospect, it is crazy to think that Shakedowns lasted as long as they did, not being removed until Chapter 3 Season 1, almost 2 years after they were added. With how overpowered the reveal medallion was back in Chapter 5 Season 4, it is safe to conclude that the removal of Shakedown mechanic was a positive change. So far, all of the features discussed were in the game at one point, but in Fortnite's history, plenty of features have never made it to the live game, only living on in leaks and concept art. The first of these features is backpacks. Upon activation, a 3-second animation would play. Once finished, you would have extra inventory slots. Now, not much is known about exactly how this would function, as the feature was entirely based off of a leak. However, assuming it would give you extra hotbar slots to hold more weapons or heals, it is safe to say this would break the game. The current 5-slot system we have now is part of what keeps the system in check. For example, if you wanted an AR, shotgun, and sniper, you now have to decide whether or not your last 2 slots should go to heals exclusively or mobility. Having extra slots would break the game by allowing you to just have everything at your disposal, and would likely make heal-offs way more jarring than they already are. Next are charms. Charms were first added to the files around Chapter 2 Season 1, but have never seen the light of day since, and in April of 2024, they were removed from the files altogether, which made some players disappointed. The reason I included charms on this list is that their addition almost seems like an upgraded version of the aforementioned pins feature that was shelved years prior. The way I imagine charms, I could see them as a way to display your personal achievements on your weapons or character. For example, maybe you could get a one-of-a-kind charm for winning an FNCS that you could then display on your weapon or your profile. Just food for thought though. Finally, there are shouts. Shouts were a form of cosmetic first added to the files in Chapter 2 Season 2. From the bare bones footage we have from leakers, it seems that you would be able to write in a custom message to be displayed on the shout. While this was cool, I think most people see the problem with this. It is pretty self-explanatory why user-generated content is not something that many games adopt these days. While it's fine in a mature game like Team Fortress 2, it has no place in a kids game like Fortnite. I also imagine this would cause huge issues with competitive integrity. There would likely be no shortage of players using shouts to communicate thoughts with each other to potentially be friendly on rotates. Overall, Fortnite has had a rich history of removed features, bad and good, and while some removals of said features are disappointing, most have been for the better. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see similar content, then like, subscribe, follow my socials, and check out the video on your screen now.